To start off, last week we kind of went over the basics. Today we're going to do the manual pressure cooking again. For this recipe, you will need your trusset. This is what you'll stack the ramekins on. When we begin to pressure cook, the recipe calls for 6 ramekins. So that's that. As far as a breakdown of what you'll need for ingredients, just 2 cups fresh cream, 6 egg yolks, 5 tablespoons white sugar, 1 tablespoon vanilla extract. Now we sent you a link. That recipe is going to be pretty close to similar. They want you to boil the cream, and that 2 cups cream boiled with a cinnamon stick, and if you had an orange, lemon, lime, zested, and bring that to a boil. Other than that, 4 tablespoons raw sugar. That's after the creme brulee has chilled, and you'll, if you don't have a torch at home, you can use your boiler, or if you have a gas stove, you can heat a spoon and use that to brown the sugar. We won't do that today just because time, they'll need a few hours to chill, and so we won't get to that. But besides that, it's pretty quick. Again, 2 cups fresh cream, 6 egg yolks, 5 tablespoons white sugar, 1 tablespoon vanilla extract. And if you did want to boil that cream, a couple citrus fruits zested and a cinnamon stick for that boil, and then the raw sugar, and we'll get to moving here pretty quick. As far as the Instapot goes, go ahead and take your trusset and put it in the bottom there. Just let it sit. There's nothing really special about it. Just put it at the bottom of the pot. We do need 2 cups of water, so you can go ahead and put that in if I can find what I did with mine. So just go ahead and put that 2 cups water in. And when we pressure cook, there's always got to be water or some type of liquid, or it won't pressure cook. And so let's begin. I've already separated my egg yolks. No, I try to present, but my laptop doesn't. I lost an egg yolk. The laptop doesn't make it too easy. So take those egg yolks. Okay. You're just going to add the white sugar and stir until that sugar dissolves. Don't really need to go crazy with it, just stir it till it dissolves. Add my whisk here. Just real quick. Now I did prepare ahead, and I boiled my fresh cream with the cinnamon stick and the zested citrus. And what you're going to do with that shortly, depending on the recipe that you read, either through the booklet that came with your Instapot, or the link that Janet put there in the chat, or that was provided on the webpage. It doesn't really pour one into the other, just as long as you mix them. So I'm just going to take my yolks and bring them straight in. So yolks stirred with sugar into the cream with vanilla and cinnamon. And they're pretty, they tell you not to overstir. So in other words, don't whip it. Just make sure they're mixed together. I will say this is my first time to do a dessert in the Instapot. I have not tried this before, so hopefully it turns out. Now, they want you to take a strainer into some type of vessel with a spout for easy pouring. This is the only thing I had. It's actually a water jug, but it'll work for what we're trying to do. And just pour the cream and the egg yolks and your mixture through your strainer. I wasn't paying attention and spilled. Sorry, I forgot I had all the zested fruit peels in there and it's taking a little longer. Regardless, just strain that. So, for time's sake, I'm not going to worry about the rest of it. Let me just keep it moving. I did spill a little bit, apologies. I'm not going to make 6, you can make 6. The last thing I need is 6 creme brulees in quarantine. I'm trying to keep the weight off as much as I can. And then it's straightforward. You just pour in to the ramekins real quick. If you have aluminum foil, get that ready because you'll wrap them in aluminum foil. I had to leave room for expansion. I'm just going to do 4. All right. So there's that. I don't know if you can see. And from there, I've got my foil. Recap. Nothing sexy about it, just make sure it's covered. How do we do that? Go over the top. You want to make them as flat as possible on the bottom because you're going to stack your ramekins. And of course, always keep a rag on hand. So just keep wrapping that foil. My ramekins are a little odd shaped, so bear with me. It takes a little while. One more. Appreciate your patience. I'm not the best at filling dead air. That's why I didn't go on the radio. Okay. Those are wrapped. Now for the Instapot time. 2 cups water, and your tray set at the bottom. Now just stack your ramekins, not directly on top of each other. So I have 4. I'm gonna go 2 on bottom, if I can. So my ramekins are big, and I can only fit 3. 2. Anyways, for the second time, I'm gonna keep it moving. You're gonna take your lid, like we said last week. You hear the initial noise, lock in place, secondary noise. Now we're gonna go manual, 9 minutes. Nine minutes. Wait for it. Make sure your valve on top is on a ceiling and not left or right. And again, remember that on just means it's building up pressure. So you got about another 10 minutes before it actually starts that countdown to 9 minutes. And the recipe calls for that natural release. And so when time runs out, when the 9 minutes is gone, and then you see the L in the counter that counts up, telling you how long you have been done cooking, go ahead and just hit cancel because we're doing a natural release. And then that residual pressure will release on its own. I'd say after 10 minutes, you'll come by and manually kick it left or right and start the venting process. But as far as the creme brulees go, that's it. There's a number of other desserts if you have the booklet that you can do. It's a little bit faster than using a conventional stove. I know that once you get done cooking, they want you to let them rest for about 40 minutes outside and then wrap in plastic in the refrigerator for about 2 to 3 hours. And then you would do your caramelizing of the sugar. But yeah, like I said, today's class is pretty quick. Any questions on the Instapot? Again, we're not using a program, it's just the manual. And then the natural release, which is once your programmed minutes have expired, just hit cancel and wait about 10 minutes to let that pressure subside on its own. And that's about it. That's the Instapot is just a thing, the more you use it, the easier it gets. I do have some yolk on my floor because I dropped some. But other than that, I got through this pretty good. I did not, so we have big fancy ramekins with handles. I couldn't fit 2 of them in there. So that's always disappointing, but live and learn.
Daniel, what's your favorite thing that you've made in the Instant Pot?
So I am from the South, so I really like it to use it to expedite processes you would normally have done in a crock pot. So things like beans, especially chili or like white beans and like a ham bone or something like that, that you would have normally have left for like 8 hours or while you went to work, that sort of thing. It is good the more you explore. So that link that Janet put in the chat there, that website does good for just general purpose pressure cooking. so it's not necessarily Instapot specific in terms of the recipes. The recipes will break down for conventional pressure cookers as well as electric, which would be the Instapot. It covers all varieties like appetizers, entrees, desserts, really flatten, I guess bad choice of phrase now, but flattening that curve in terms of your Instapot knowledge and expertise. I really like using the recipe book that came with Instapot and just learning the do's and don'ts and do I want 2 cups water versus a cup and a half? How do I like to manipulate how the recipe performs? I'm looking at the other recipe like rice pudding. I don't like rice pudding, but Thais likes rice pudding, so I could see that being something that we try. Things like ossobuco, like a meat on the bone that would typically take a while to cook. I really like the Instapot for. That will probably be my next one that I will do is ossobuco.
Mm. Does anyone have any other questions?
Sorry it went so fast. I really wanted to switch it over to a dessert this time. One being that I had never really done a dessert before. Yeah, it just really worked out that this recipe doesn't take that long, but it does take a while for it to sit. So that's just the nature of creme brulees. But
Brenda,
go ahead.
Brenda, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to say one of my favorite recipe books is the Rootatute cookbook.
Okay.
And I actually found that online, and the poor lady died that wrote it. But every recipe in there is amazing, and the beef stew is just the easiest thing.
Yep.
And just fabulous.
Good.
So no, I'm like a Instapot convert. I use it for everything.
Yeah, I mean, once you get comfortable with it and you don't have to keep referring back to the user's manual, like, what does manual do again? Do I use a program for this? Is it less, more, or high? Once you get comfortable with the settings, you can use it for everything. I use it a lot for sauteing. I want to look into, so again, I'm from the South and fried chicken is very much part of my life. I want to look into whether or not the Instapot has that capability. I haven't looked into that. Do you know anything, Brenda, if you can put a lot of grease in the pot and fry foods like chicken?
I don't.
The Easter's coming up, and that's a tradition, is fried chicken on Easter. So I got to figure that out.
Yeah. I'm just happy with my hard-cooked eggs.
There you go.
And I wasn't here last week, can you talk a little bit about the program versus the manual?
Yeah, programs essentially my Instapot wasn't sealing for a second. Programs essentially equated to your microwave and those type of programs, like popcorn and that sort of thing. There is a bit of a learning curve with it, and really look at that instruction manual. So when you look at meat stew, that button for a program, it's always going to be broken down into less, normal, or more pressure. And depending upon the type of meat you have is how much pressure you're going to want. So a softer meat, naturally, you would do less. A meat on the bone, like ossobuco, you're going to do more. And beyond that, you just set your minutes and you go. Manual, I really don't toggle outside of the saute button in manual, just because I know the time that I need, and I'm not really worried about measuring the amount of pressure. And so, yeah, I haven't really come across. Now, rice would be a good program that I could see people using a lot. And that's, again, it's just like the popcorn button in your microwave. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's really the only differentiator. Now, I have the Lux. It's the older model. There's a newer version out, the Duo, and it's got a couple of they made some corrections in terms of how they labeled the buttons, and so that should help some people out.
Do you mind sharing any mistakes or failures that you've learned from?
Oh yeah, always. So in the beginning, the whole keep warm and then saute, especially like let's say you make a big pot of chili and it's the next day and you want to warm it up. I struggle between sometimes using saute or keep warm. I don't have the patience for keep warm. And so saute, but saute gets so hot, so fast, and you have to stay there because it will burn the bottom. And yeah, it just that's just trial and error. And you just got to stand there, or it will bubble over and it will shoot it out of the pot. I've never had one. I've never had a situation where I thought it'd explode. The first time I kicked the ventilator over, I did get burned a little bit. I really underestimated the amount of steam that comes out of it. That's something I would say your first time, use like, I don't know, like a utensil, something that lengthens that touch and kick it over that way. I really highly suggest them. They're good about bringing variety to your diet and things that you normally wouldn't cook. That's what they're good for. At least for me. There's only, I don't know, I get ruts where it's like, how many times can you cook ground beef? And how many different ways can you use ground beef? I can't eat too much pork. It's just my body. I can't do too much pork. Chicken is the same way with ground beef. It's just same thing over and over again. There is a good, I like duck. In that Stop and Shop here on Island, there's a brand called D'Artagnan. I buy a lot of that. I really like that.
Do you buy the breast or you buy the whole duck?
I do the breast. I really like duck confit as well. Yeah, I'll do the whole breast. Now I'll just pan sear that, and then I do like a reduction sauce, and I get fancy and buy my goat cheese with like the raspberries on it and stuff like that. I've been also thinking about in terms of the Instapot and the classes and stuff. I know they do a leg or a shoulder at Stop and Shop too. I'm not that advanced. I'd have to look into that. But that's for lamb. Lamb's another good option. I'm trying to think of what else. You know, I have not done lobster. Again, I'm from the South, so things like lobster don't really come into my mind in terms of an option. And
what do you eat now that you didn't eat before?
Okay, I'll pull the curtain back. If there's like a traditional New England, and I say traditional, you know, culturally, that I don't really quite, or it's taken me a little bit to get used to. It's the boiled tradition, like the boiling of foods. You know, we do it in the South too, but we put half a can of spices in there. And so like crawfish boils and things like that, the food's really spicy and hot. Like a clam boil is, I do find it a bit bland, or at least the ones that I've had, just the, you know, solid potatoes and so that took me a little bit to get used to. I love clam chowder and being up here. I've always said, so I've lived on East and West Coast, all my family's from California. New England seafood is 3 times better than California. When I lived in San Diego, I wouldn't even eat the seafood half the time. Just, I was spoiled having lived in New England. I just wasn't the same. I know Annie's, I've been treated to her clam chowder. I can eat bread bowls and clam chowder all day, any day. I would eat more lobster. I love lobster. It's just so expensive. What else? Not too much. If anything, a lot of the restaurants on island, um, they do some southern throwbacks. What's the barbecue place down by the High Line? What's it called?
Oh, backyard barbecue.
Yeah, I'll give them a southern seal of approval. They're not, they've, I came in there with I come from Eastern Arkansas, so it's like Memphis is right there. So, yeah, pretty snobby when it comes to barbecue, but they put some meats in front of me that I was impressed with. They did a good job. What else? I've got some restaurants that are still on my list I haven't hit up. French food's one of my favorites. I haven't been to Languedoc. I want to go there. Thais is Portuguese, so I get a lot of Portuguese food. So we have a strong Hispanic culture in Arkansas. So things like chorizo I grew up with, but chorizo, it's a bit of a dry sausage to me, so that took some getting used to. Her mom cooks an amazing bacalhau. I really enjoyed that. I'm surprised there's not more Portuguese restaurants on island. What else? I can't really think what would be like a New England staple that I haven't mentioned that I should include in my diet. I can't think of any others really, but I'll eat it all. I'm unabashed. But yeah, it's I enjoy it. My favorite thing is to go out and eat when I can. Yeah.
Does anyone on the call have any questions? The shy bunch. What's I think you already mentioned this. What's the next thing you want to make that you haven't made in the Instant Pot?
I have to look at it. It's tricky. So this is the only second time that we've done this, and I'm still kind of workshopping the awkwardness and the dead time, and I'm not a YouTuber, so I have a greater appreciation for the people who do that, and I really understand why they don't stop talking now. So I say all that to say that coming up with the dish for the class is a little tricky in terms of prep time versus actual pressure cook time versus actual allotted time in the class. I'm gonna look into the ossobuco. I don't know if that'll work. I just have to do a little bit of research. The duck and our lamb idea was interesting. So someone asked me the last class when time runs out and they're off doing the laundry or whatever, should they panic or worry? No. What comes up is a single L, so an L, and a series of zeros. Those zeros are just a timer, but that timer counts up, telling you how many times, or how many minutes, rather, you've been done with your program and or manual minutes.
Okay,
now,
so it's already pressurized and now it's in the process of depressurizing.
Well, good question. Not necessarily, because our keep warm button is indicated, it's lit up. To go into a natural release, to have that depressurization, that natural release of on its own, you have to hit the cancel button.
Okay.
Now that natural release has started.
Okay.
And depending upon what you cooked and how much pressure, it's a ratio thing. I would say on average 10 minutes. Sometimes you'll have the recipe say 20. I think 20 is a pretty extreme. I think
so if you hadn't hit canceled, it would do it for you?
No, it'll just stay on, keep warm,
Oh.
and then it'll just keep track of the minutes. It's been in that mode.
Okay.
Now, with the keep warm, I'm sure there's still some natural depressurization, just not as fast, you know. So yeah, so I just hit cancel, now it's off. In about 10 minutes, I'll cook the valve over to release whatever pressure and or steam is left over. I'm gonna take those out and cook the other two. And that's it. As far as the recipe goes, but the creme brulee, I'm sure those on camera